Hey, good morning, fam. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the show. This is Greta Ross with Mind, Body, Soul Shift. I hope everyone had an awesome week and you're having a great start to your weekend. Happy Saturday. We are now officially in the middle of January of 2020. The time has just flown by. I'm telling you, you look up and we're almost in February. So we have a couple more weeks left in this month and we'll be in a whole new month. We're going to be doing some new things, but welcome to the show. We're going to continue our conversation this week about a sensitive subject, which is depression. But what I found out during my research is that it affects so many people, and I thought it was really worth bringing some information to you guys, just so that you will have the information, the ammunition, if you will. I've always heard to be forewarned is to be forearmed. So I want to give you the information that is going to help you to be forearmed, just in case, because there's situations and seasons that we all go through in our lives, and we need to be aware of things that may linger a little bit longer than what they should. So that's the reason why I want to continue the conversation about depression. And I picked two of the subjects that I want to hit on today. One of them is situational depression, and the other one is seasonal depression. So I want to talk about both of them, but the seasonal depression, I'm going to kind of put a spin on it because I think that in order to get the full understanding of it, we have to really dig deep into that one, the seasonal, because seasons are not just natural seasons, they're also spiritual seasons, and that's what I want to talk about. So this is Greta Ross with Mind, Body, Soul Shift. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to talk more about situational depression as well as seasonal depression. We'll be right back. Hey, good morning again. Greta Ross here with Mind, Body, Soul Shift. And we are going to continue the conversation that we had on last week about depression. And this week, like I said, we're going to dig into two of the subjects that I think really affects every human being on the planet. And that is situational and seasonal. And so those are the two subjects that I want to talk about today, because I think that they are definitely worth talking about, because again, everybody is or will experience those two subjects, guaranteed, because all of us have situations on a daily, and we all go through seasons in our lives. You know, not just the natural season, not just winter, spring, and fall, but we also go through seasons in our lives that last longer than the normal seasons. But the first thing I want to talk about is the situational depression. So last week we talked about the noticeable signs, and these signs are in effect, if you will, in both of these situations that I'm talking about, the seasonal and the situational depression. These signs are just very upfront, very in your face. Okay, so make a note of it, so that way you can kind of notice that if you went through a situation and these things are lingering, then you might want to kind of take a step back and examine that. So here are some of the noticeable moods that we talked about last week: the anxiety, just general discomfort, guilt, hopelessness. You've lost interest in the things in activities that used to bring you pleasure. You have mood swings. and sadness pretty much all the time, constantly. I mean, almost 24/7. You go to sleep, you wake up, and you're in the same place. It also affects your behavior. You're agitated. You may have excessive crying, irritability, restlessness, and social isolation. And of course, sleeping. Some people experience that they sleep a lot when they're depressed, and some people don't sleep at all. They're just constantly awake because they're in their head, so they don't sleep. They just restless all the time. But that affects your whole entire body. Those things affect your body. It affects your health. It affects your well-being. It also affects your mind. It also gives you the lack of the ability to concentrate. You don't have any peace. You're just kind of like all over the place, willy-nilly, just everywhere in your mind, because you can't bring it all in together. So you don't have the concentration to be able to focus on something or anything. Some people lose weight. Some people gain weight. Some people, their appetite increases. Some people's appetite decreases. So these are noticeable, very noticeable moods, whether they're something that you are experiencing or someone that you're close to, that you love, or that you work with, that you see these moods, these noticeable moods in. They might want to, or you may want to kind of take a step back and take a look at that. Why? So what I want to do is I want to talk about the situational depression, and that's usually from things that may happen in our life, like something tragic, like a tragic death, or someone that dies suddenly, or a divorce, or a custody battle, because it's a situation that you're in. It's not something that, it may have become your norm, but it's not the norm. It's just that situation, because eventually it's gonna end. But while you're in it, you may be experiencing some of those noticeable moods while you're in the middle of that. But the reason why I want to bring it to your attention is, if you are experiencing some of those noticeable moods while you're in your situation, and I'm going to give you some solutions so that you could apply them, so that you don't have to, so you will know what to do, and it doesn't become overwhelming, and that you won't stay there, because then that's going to lead to something else. So what you want to do is you want to prevent that from happening by getting a handle on it while you're here in this situation, and understand that it's a situation. A divorce doesn't last forever. A custody battle doesn't last forever. You won't grieve forever. However, I understand that when you're in the middle of it, it feels like that. I know. I had one of those days a couple days ago where it just seemed like, and it'll start to snowball on you, because that's what happened to me. But what you have to do is you have to be aware of it. And as hard as I tried to, to stop, I had to really just like stop myself and say, get out your head, you're in a bad neighborhood, because it just kept going and going and going and going, and every little thing just agitated me, every little thing just irritated me. So before I got to the point of, and it wasn't like I was in any particular situation, it was just that I could have put myself in a situation, all because of my behavior. So it's like, let me pump my brakes here and realize what's going on. So if people that lose a loved one tragically, suddenly, or whether it's you're taking care of a loved one that is sick, and that's a situation. People that are my age, our parents are older, and some of us, I'm not one of them, but some of us, my age group, are taking care of their parents. So they're watching their parents go through, whether it's dementia, Parkinson, whatever it is. They're watching their parents go through that, and but that's the situation. But you also have to be aware of the situation so that you don't get locked into that and stay in that place, because it will lead to the next stage, which is full-blown depression. So what you want to do is you want to recognize that this is a situation, and again, that's why I want to give you some insight to what you can tell yourself, what you can start to believe, start to receive it, start to believe it, start to live it, start to apply it, so that way you won't stay in this situation. So this is Greta Ross. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back, and we're going to talk about that. Be right back. Okay, we're back. We're talking about situational depression. That could be, whether you're going through a divorce, lost someone tragic, having financial hardships, lost a job, going through a custody battle. Those things will end. So that's why it's a situation. However, while you're in the middle of that, it doesn't mean that it's not affecting you. And it could be affecting you physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that's why you have to be aware of the symptoms. So that way it won't linger, because you don't want it to linger. You don't want to have frequent crying. That's not something you want to do for months and months and months. So of course, if you lose someone, you're going to grieve. And there's a time, and even Ecclesiastes say there's a season for all things. So yes, you're going to grieve, but at some point in time, it will get better. And you don't want to be anxious all the time. You don't want to have your appetite to change, because then that's going to start to really affect your health. So you see how all this has a trickling effect? You don't want to lose sleep. You don't want to sleep too much, because that also affects your health. So that's the reason why I want us to be aware of these signs and symptoms, because it leads to bigger things. So if we can get a handle on it while we're in a situation, and know and understand that it is a situation, and know that there is a solution for us to be able to be comforted during that time. And so here are some of the things that we know are true. And the reason why we know that is because it's the Word of God. We know that there's going to be trials and tribulations. We know that. Situations. But all at the same time, we have to know, be assured that testing of your faith through experience produce endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. In James 1:3. So whenever you are in a situation and you know that it's just a situation, you know it's going to end. Because in the end, but if you can get your peace while you're in the middle of the situation, that's the key right there, is maintaining peace while you're in the middle of the situation, because it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming, but you have to be able to be in a position to know that we're experiencing something, but it's also producing something inside of us. I am the Lord. There is nothing too difficult for me. I'll come back next year, this time, I promised, and Sarah will have a son. Well, that's in Genesis 18 and 14. Let me just say that so you can go and look that up. But I am the Lord. There is nothing too difficult for me. I will come back next year at this time, as I promised, and Sarah will already have a son. Now, everybody's familiar with the story in the Bible about Sarah and how long she wanted to give birth to a child. But she was in a situation, and then this scripture is going to also apply to seasonal as well. But she was in a situation that she didn't want to endure. She didn't want to endure her situation. So what she did was she kind of just started, making things happen, which, kind of led to so many other things. It was a trickling effect. And it went on for generations to generations to generations. So that's why when we're in a situation, if we understand that it's a situation and we have enough peace where we can understand that, then we won't do things that's going to create problems generations to come. Because she created a problem generations to come. Her son's son, and it just went on and on and on. So, but then we're going to talk about this in the seasonal as well. So we have to understand that there's nothing to do, and he will not give us any more than we can bear. So if we're in a situation that feels like it's really unbearable, then what we have to understand is this is just a situation. We don't need to be anxious about it. We don't need to have anxiety about it, because we know that it's producing something inside of us, and we just have to keep our inner peace. And the way we hold on to that is we have to know that God told us, I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace and confidence. So when we have confidence in him that he has already worked out the situation, whether it's financial, whether it's grieving, whether it's a job, whatever the situation is, we have to have the peace and the confidence in him. See, that's the only thing that's going to really, help us in the situation. We can get on the phone and we could talk to people about it over and over and over again, or we could talk to people, but that's not really helping it. So what we have to do is we have to have the inner peace and the confidence in him. Because he says, in the world you will have trials and tribulations and distress and frustration. But be of good cheer. Take courage and be confident, certain, for I have overcome the world. So whatever the situation is, he already told us that in this world, we're going to have trials and tribulations, distress and frustration. But he also told us that we can have confidence in him. He says, I have deprived it of its power to harm you, and I have conquered it for you. So what you have to tell yourself in that situation is that what God has done, he said that I have deprived it of its power to harm you mentally. And he has conquered it for you. So when you're in the middle of that situation, tell yourself that out of John 16 and 33. That's what you do. That right there is going to keep you in peace. Because your confidence is in this. Because you can't have confidence in anything else except for this right here. Period. We're going to take a quick break, and next we're going to talk about seasonal depression. Because I want you to understand that this is just not spring, winter, summer, and fall. When I say seasonal depression, I'm talking about spiritual seasons. So we're going to take a quick break. This is Greta Ross. We'll be right back. Hey, Greta Ross, Mind, Body, Soul Shift, and we're back. We are going to talk about seasonal depression in the natural, and then we're going to talk about the seasons and how they differ from the natural seasons, because the natural seasons still affect people to the point where they can have depression. Like here in Dallas for the last couple of days, it's been raining and cloudy, and and that just like, I don't like the rain. I know we have to have the rain, we need the rain, but it just puts me in a place, and I don't know, and I noticed that, so I have to do different things. I can't just stay in that place, because so what if it rains for a whole nother week? Don't want to think about that. Because I know the place that it puts me in. So therefore I have to prepare my mental so that I don't start to feel the effects of this, because it's winter time, so we're going to have rain here in Dallas. So we're going to talk about the seasonal depression. So this is called seasonal affective disorder, and the acronym is called SAD, and I didn't even know there was such a thing, and I posted something about SAD during my research on my page, and I hope you guys are kind of keeping up with my the stuff that I'm posting, because I think it's really good information that you can kind of use at some point. You may not need it today, but at some point you may need it. But I posted something about SAD, and it's a disorder, and I didn't know that there was such a thing, and just so happened this young lady that's a friend of mine reached out to me and posted on the page, and she said that it was something that she suffered from, and that she didn't even know what it was, because she wasn't diagnosed with it, because nobody really could identify what it was. She just knew the things that she was experiencing, and then she said she would just make up stuff about her behavior and her moods, because she didn't really know what it was. But it's a pattern. There's patterns to this stuff, to this seasonal disorder stuff. So that's why we have to pay attention to the patterns, because the patterns tells us, it's like connecting the dots. And once you connect all the dots, then you have a picture. You can see what it is. So usually seasonal depression usually affects people more so in the winter months, in the winter months, and for me, again, I don't like the rain. That's why I could never really live in Seattle. I do become more withdrawn when it's raining. I'm not as talkative. I don't really want to say, so I do become withdrawn, but I also know that about myself. So I have to pay attention to that so that I don't stay in that place. Some people may increase in their sleeping. Some people may gain weight, some people may lose weight, and then you have that feeling of hopelessness and sadness and unworthiness all the time, and you can't even explain why. You don't even know why, but it can get worse. So that's why, even though it says seasonal depression, if you're in spring leading into summer, then you've gone past the point of seasonal depression, which may be something you may want to take a look at, because the feeling the sad, the dark moods, excuse me, feeling hopeless, all that stuff affects your health. It affects your health. So that's why we have to pay attention to that stuff, because it's really important. So one of the things that we have to understand about seasons is that we have natural seasons, we also have spiritual seasons, because we are spiritual beings, having a human experience, which I shared before in my spiritual pillar. We are spiritual beings, so therefore we have spiritual seasons, because one day can be like 1,000 years. So that's a long season. You look how long Sarah waited. So, but here's the thing that we have to understand about a season, is that we cannot grow weary or become discouraged in doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap if we don't give in. Galatians 6:9. So while we're going through that season, we have to find the principles to hold on to, apply them, live by them, so that we can see them working in our lives. So that the season will last only as long as it's supposed to. Because there's a time limit to a season. I don't know how long that season is. I know that according to the natural, we have the seasons, you're talking about what, 90 plus days. But in the spiritual realm, a season may not be 90 days. It could be 9 months. It could be 9 years. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. But it differs for everybody. But there is a season, an appropriate time for everything. And a purpose for everything in Ecclesiastes 3:1. So when we start to feel discouraged, or we start to lose our enthusiasm for life, and we start to replace that with doubt and negativity, don't linger in that, because that is a disorder. It will turn into something that will get out of control. So that's why you can't be discouraged in the season. So we go through seasons in life. Some may last longer than others, and it's easy to convince yourself that this will never end. It's easy to do that, but that's where the negativity comes in. That's why you can't go there. That's why you have to stay right here in Galatians 6:9. You got to keep your mind in Galatians 6:9. You can't have the negative thoughts in that. You can't be in that space too long, because it will snowball out of control and you won't be able to get a handle on it. So I posted that we have 4 seasons that I want to talk about. We have the growing seasons, we have the pruning season, we have the wilderness season, and we have the harvest season. And all of us experience all of those. All of us do. Because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But the growing season will bring changes and unique challenges. It will even stretch us. But what we have to understand is that we have to be stretched to be enlarged, to be ready for the next level, the next task, the next assignment. And so you have to grow. You have to grow here so you can be ready there, because you can't get there until you grow into that. It's kind of like buying a shoe that's too big for your foot eventually. Well, when you're kids, we used to do that. We would buy shoes that were a little bit too big, about the thumb, it's like, but we knew that the child was going to grow into the shoe. So it's kind of like that, God is going to stretch us. But guess what? Eventually, we're going to be at the point where we're going to be too big for that space. And now it's time to go to the next level. That's the growing season. It doesn't always feel good. You're going to have some discomfort. It's just like when the shoe gets too small. At first it was too big, but now you grew into it. But now that it's too small, it's uncomfortable for your foot. As a matter of fact, it's starting to bring pain. But in order to get to that next season, in order for that shoe to become too big, you have to be in the place where you can expand and grow so that you can walk in that next season. So don't shrink back. Don't go backwards, because you've already grown. And guess what? When your shoe becomes too small, your foot will not grow back. It won't go back to the size that it was just so you can fit the shoe. So we shouldn't do that, and we shouldn't do that in our lives. We shouldn't go back, because we've already grown. Let's look at the growth. Let's look at where we've come from. Let's look how far we have gone and how much further we have to go if we continue to go forward. Yes, we may stumble. Yes, we may trip, but we're going to get up and we're going to keep it moving forward. There's going to be unfamiliar territory, guarantee you. But that's no reason to say, hey, I can't do this. Because we've all been there. We've all had challenges in our life. In a growing season, we've all had challenges to the point where we just said, hey, I can't do this no more. But if you're in that place right now, here's what you have to understand. That God is going to make our footsteps firm if we delight in Him. So that's why we have to have our confidence in Him, so that we know that in that season, he is going to keep us planted firm so that we don't be all over the place, and just understand that this is a season. Because God knows when we're in the growing season. He knows that it's difficult for us. He's not aware. He is not unaware that it's difficult for us. He knows that. He knows that better than we know it. But we have to keep growing, and we have to keep trusting him. So we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna come right back, and next we're gonna talk about the pruning season. This right here is even more difficult than the growing season, because once you start to grow, now you got to go through the whole pruning thing. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break. This is Greta Ross with Mind, Body, Soul Shift. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back here, Mind, Body, Soul Shift. We are going to talk about the pruning season now. God allows test after test in your life because he is preparing you for something greater. That's why we have tests. It's just like going to school. You go through all these series of tests. At least in the state of Texas, we didn't go through the battery of tests when I was in school like that. But you have test after test after test. Every single year, the kids have to go through all these different testings in order to qualify to go to the next level. So that's how our life is. God gives us test after test after test in our lives because he is preparing us for the next grade. There are going to be some attitudes, beliefs, and even some people you need to let go of to enter the next season. So, as difficult as the pruning season is, it's necessary for all of us. It's necessary in the natural, it's necessary in the spirit. If you have clutter, you need to prune out some of that because it's affecting your life in the natural, in your natural space. Pruning, when God takes you through a pruning season, he's removing some things because he's trying to make room. That's a part of the growing process. That's a part of the growing process. So he's making room for your next season. But you're going to be tested and tested and tested and tested. And yes, it's going to be very uncomfortable. But you have to go through that. You have to go through that process. Because if you're trying to hold on to something that is not a part of your purpose, then you're just delaying yourself in your own purpose. So when we go through the test, it's kind of like things being stripped away with the pruning. Things are being stripped away because you got to get to the real layer, to where it is that you need to be, that you're supposed to be, where it is to be able to walk in our purpose. But in that season, we have to understand that we are being shaped during the pruning season. We're being shaped during the pruning season because it's just like shedding weight. It's just like shedding weight in the natural. That whole process is not fun. I'll be the first one to tell you, losing 117 pounds, that wasn't a fun process, and it was long. That was a long season in my life. A year and 4 months, 5 months, that's a long season to get to where I am now, to be able to maintain my health. But I had to understand this is a season. Did I want to give up? Yes. But you can't give up in the middle of the season. But guess what? I was being pruned. things was being pruned out of my life, like certain habits, like, not that I ever slept late, but getting up earlier to go to the gym. One thing was replaced with something else, but it was something that was good because I grew into. But I couldn't grow into it if God didn't prune things, if He didn't stretch me, if He didn't say, hey, we're going to get rid of this, you don't need this anymore, you don't need that anymore. And once those things were gone, guess what? I said, oh wow, this is great. And it made me realize that I didn't need those things. But in John 16 and 33, I want to read that because I think it's really, sorry about that. I think that's a really, really good scripture for us to understand seasons, and even the one with Sarah. I use that as an example because let me say that first. When I think about Sarah and seasons, and how we have to understand what season we're in, and when we know what season we're in, and the only reason why we can know that is because we have to know that when we're growing and we're being pruned, that God is going to take us to the place where He promises. He promised her that she was going to have a son. He promised her that. But in that season of waiting, she ran out of patience. So she started doing what she thought was going to give her what she thought she wanted. But then in the end, she found out that she should have waited for the season for God to show up because He was pruning some things. This is Greta Ross. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. So when God is pruning us, let Him do what He's doing, because he knows what He's doing. So even though Sarah may have had to wait a long time, which in her eyes was a long time because she wanted a child, God knew that there were some things that had to happen. He had to get rid of some things in her life before that could happen. However, again, she became impatient in that season. So we have to understand what season we're in. And don't rush the season because it can cost us. So getting back to John 16 and 33, because God says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace and confidence. In the world you will have tribulations and trials and distress and frustrations, but be of good cheer. We have to know that that's a season. That scripture applies to situations that apply to seasons. But you have to know what season you're in, and you have to know, yes, it may be a long season, but you have to know that, guess what? A new season is going to come. A new season is going to come. It has to. The next season I want to talk about is going to be the wilderness season. Yeah, that is, excuse me, that is a lonely place. That's a very lonely place, the wilderness season. For some people, it may be a season of lack, of waiting. For some, it may even be suffering. But the one thing that I do know is that it is a very lonely place in the wilderness. It's like being in a place and feeling like God is not speaking, that He's silent. To me, that's my that's my interpretation of the wilderness. It's like God is just silent. It's like, please just speak. And that's just how I feel. And I have been to the wilderness before, and I'm sure I will be in the wilderness again, because it's a season. It's a season. And in regards to how well we live or what we have in our life, we will experience or have or is at this moment experiencing a wilderness experience. And again, that could be a time of lack in your life, and that could be a lack of hearing God, a lack of finances, whatever the lack is. It could be a lack of something. And waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting in the wilderness. Is like, oh my God, I've been walking around in this wilderness for 40 years. And that could be suffering for some people, because waiting for me is like torture. I don't have the patience of Job. I will be the first to admit it. But in the wilderness, we have to understand that season. But the good thing is about the wilderness is that, what, God gives us enough strength, and He gives us what we need on a day-to-day basis to be able to stay in that place and get through that time. So we have to fight the urge. We have to fight really hard. We have to fight the urge to say, okay, enough of this wilderness stuff. I'm going back. Because at least when I was back there, I had this, that, and the other. Yeah, but the wilderness season, you got through the growing season, you got through the pruning season. But the wilderness season is, here you are, and you just feels like, I done been through 2 other seasons. That this is enough. But you can't turn back from the wilderness. Go through the process of the wilderness so you can come out on the other side. I guarantee you one thing. You will be the better for it. Because the wilderness experience always makes you a better person. It always. And it brings you so much closer to God. Because you're never alone in the wilderness. It may feel like you are. It feels like there is no one there but you. Like no one else understands. No one else can get this but you. That's not true. God is always there. Even in the wilderness. He said He would never leave us. He said He would never forsake us. And that's what we have to take confidence in. And we also have to know that this too shall end. It's not going to last forever. It's a season. It's a season. So understand your season. Don't be like Sarah. Don't get ahead, because it will affect generations. You'll have an Isaac and an Ishmael for generations. That is not what you want to deal with. So understand you are in a season, and don't get ahead of God. Go through the season, because you already have the victory. It's already been laid out. You just have to do your part. It's already been written. So what we have to do is stay focused and do what God has called us to do, and know that we have victory in Him. So now is the time to press even harder in the presence of God, and understand that no season lasts forever. That this too shall pass. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back to our last season, which everybody loves this season, which is the harvest season. We're going to come back and talk about the harvest season, but we have to understand that we had to go through a growing season. We had to go through a pruning season. We had to go through a wilderness. Oh, can't forget that. Had to go through the wilderness season. So we had to go through 3 seasons before we could get to the harvest. But all 3 of those seasons were necessary in order to be able to get to the last season, which is the harvest season. And everybody wants to be able to get to the harvest season. So this is Greta Ross, Mind, Body, Soul Shift. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back here, Mind, Body, Soul Shift. We're going to talk about the harvest season, last season here. Everybody loves the harvest season because you are reaping the benefits of the 3 previous seasons. You're reaping the benefits of the growing season. You're reaping the benefits of the pruning season. You're reaping the benefit of the wilderness season. So this is a good place. This feels really good because those seasons are behind you now, and now you are in a really, really good place in your life, which means that you are in a very busy season, which demands a lot of your time, your energy, and your strength. It does. When you get into a harvest season, it seems like you're just kind of stretched in so many different directions. You're doing so many things because of all the benefits that has come from the previous seasons. The growing season, the pruning season, the wilderness season, so much has come from that. And now you are busy, so much demand on your life. You're here, you're there. I mean, just you went from being overlooked to overbooked, which you're using a lot of energy and a lot of strength. And at some point, even though it's a harvest season, it still can be overwhelming from time to time. It's not, like it's an everyday thing, but, you just sit down and say, this is my life. This is my life. And you think about that. But what you have to remember is how blessed you are, and that is good and to be a good steward in your harvest season to what God has blessed you with. Because yes, you advanced to the next season. Yes, you advanced to the next level, and now you're in the harvest season. But don't forget those previous seasons. Don't forget those. Because sometimes we get busy, and all the stuff that we went through, we're not feeling those things anymore. We're not feeling the wilderness, and we're not feeling the pruning, we're not feeling the growing pains anymore. So even though you haven't forgotten, it's not because of where you are and it feels so good. It's not, you're not honing in on that. But keep that in the forefront of your mind and understand that was a difficult place. So that's what got you to where you are now in this harvest season. So don't be tempted not to still give God what's rightfully His. I mean, because when you were growing, you was praying. When you was being pruned, you was praying. When we were in the wilderness, we was praying. So that same attitude of our relationship with God on that level, even though it was trying times and situations and circumstances that we may have been going through, but our relationship with God grew so tremendously during that time. When we get busy and in that harvest season, let's not forget that. Because it's easy to do, because we get busy, we get overwhelmed with all the goodness that He's blessed us with. But we have to keep that balance and understand that, yes, we made it through those seasons, but guess what? We can easily go back to those seasons. I mean, because pretty much it is a season. So we're almost kind of guaranteed that we're going to see those seasons again, because it makes us better and it keeps taking us higher and higher and higher. So that's why in the harvest season, we cannot forget those things that we went through, and that we should be blessing God all the more because we were able to come out on the other side of those seasons. And even more so, we can share it with other people. And we can help them, because it says we overcome by the words of our testimony. So if we can tell our testimony to somebody, we can help somebody else. When we talk about the pruning season, and nobody likes to talk about that because that's ugly. But we go through it. We don't want to talk about the wilderness. We don't want to talk about having lack of whether it's not hearing God. I saw this post maybe a week or so ago. This young lady And when I say young lady, I mean young lady. She's in her early 20s. I used to go to church with her some years ago, and she had posted about how, she was just in this season of her life where she just felt like she just didn't hear God. That he wasn't speaking, and sometimes we feel like, so we can't forget those things while we're in our harvest season. We can't forget what that felt like. It's, oh no, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to know what it's like again, not to be able to hear God's voice. I want to be able to feel his presence. So that's why when we're in our harvest season, we have to maintain that balance. Because it's easy for it to get away. I'm telling you, just like it snowballs in for the good, it can snowball you in the backwards direction. It can. If you don't pay attention while you're in the harvest, because time gets away from you, and you're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. So no, whatever it took for you to get there, continue to do those things so you can maintain that. Because it's just like me going to the gym. I know that in order for me to maintain my good health, I know that there's certain things that I have to do. I know I have to eat right. I have to get my rest. I have to go to the gym. There's things that I have to do. I mean, I could not do them. I mean, I have an alternative, but I don't want to deal with the alternative. That is not, even the thought of that is like, seriously, it's scary to me. So, and I don't care if I get a contract tomorrow, today, whatever, with the biggest syndicated on the air, I still have to maintain everything it took me to get right here in reference to my weight and the good habits that I've developed over the years. Because that was a wilderness season. That was pruning. That was growing. So do you think that I'm going to let go of that now that I'm in my harvest season, now that I get to enjoy this? And I'm not even where I really want to be yet. But hopefully by the summertime I will be. That's the plan, that's the goal. I know I say that every year. But hey, every year I get better. Every year I improve. I look back on some of the tapes that I recorded, even like a month or so ago, right before the holidays. And I said, wow, my muscle tone has grown in the last 30 days. And I can see the difference. So I know that I'm only going to get better. However, if I don't continue to do everything that I did through the growing season, through the pruning season, through the wilderness season to get me to this harvest season, then I will lose all that. Even my relationship with God, because that's how all this got started. So I can't lose focus on that in this harvest season. And I don't care what life demands on me, whether I have I'm on the air, once a week, or touring the country, I still have to maintain this, because what I know is that this is a principle in my life. And I have to do this in order to continue to maintain good health mentally and physically, because I don't want to suffer from any type of mental disorders. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to have seasonal depression or situational depression. And situations are going to come. They are. Frustrations are going to come. The other day was probably one of the most frustrating days that I've had in a long time. I mean, when I tell you everything, even the way people were just breathing the air was getting on my nerves. Seriously. And it was, and when I went to sleep, I said, God, what, please just let me wake up tomorrow in a totally different space, because it was overwhelming. It was like I couldn't even stop myself. And yes, hey, we're going to have those days. But thank God it passed. Thank God it was just, one situation just kept leading to another and to another. And, hey, I could have woke up today with the same mindset. Sad and just like, oh my God, I can't. But thank God I didn't, because I had to recognize, that was there. Here I am now. So in my harvest season, I still remember the steps that got me here. My growing season, my pruning season, my wilderness season, and now my harvest season. And I'm so thankful for the harvest season. We have to know what season we're in. We don't know how long the season is going to last. But we have to know what season we're in our lives, whether we're growing, whether we're being pruned, whether this is the wilderness, or whether we're in our harvest season. We have to know that. It's really important so that we can finish the course in that season to go to the next level. So this is Greta. We're also going to take a quick break, and we are going to come right back. Hey, Greta Ross back here with Mind, Body, Soul Shift. Hey, I want to leave you with some scriptures today that I hope and pray that you will take them, read them, apply them to your life so that you can experience and walk in the fullness and know that yes, you may be going through your growing season, or you may be going through your pruning season, or you may be going through your wilderness season or your harvest season, whatever it is. All these will apply, but hold on to them because it will help you in your spirit to stay in a good place. Because sometimes we lose our enthusiasm. Sometimes we lose being happy and bright and always just on the positive side. But we don't want to replace that with doubt and negativity. So let us not grow weary in well-doing, and let's not get discouraged. Because at the proper time, we will reap if we don't give up. Galatians 6 and 9. And in Psalms, I love this one. I will bless the Lord who has given me counsel. Yes, my heart instructs me in the night season. That's that wilderness. Because even there, you still get instructions. Psalms 16 and 7 says so. So we have to believe that even in our night season, even in the wilderness season, we have to know that we still get counsel from God. And in Ecclesiastics, everyone knows this, there's a season at an appointed time for everything. For everything delights an event or purpose under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3 and 1. Those who stand firm during testing are blessed. They are tried and true. They will receive the life God promised to those who love Him as their reward. So what he just said here in James 1 is, those who stand firm during the testing season, whether it's growth, whether it's pruning, whether it's wilderness, or whether it's harvest, he said in James says that if you stand firm, you're blessed. If you stand firm, you're blessed. Because you will receive the promise. You will receive the promise. That's good news, man. That's good news. I don't know about y'all, but I'm happy about that one. And in James 1 and 12, it says, God has promised to those who love Him that He will be our reward. So here's the last one. Then I will give you the rains in their seasons, and the land shall yield its increase. and the trees of the field shall yield its fruit. Leviticus 26:4. That's the harvest season. But you have to go through those rains, those seasons. You have to go through the growing season. You have to go through the pruning season. You got to go through the wilderness season. And then you got to go through the harvest season. But that is the best season because you get to reap the benefits of all that you went through all that time. But this is Greta Ross with Mind, Body, Soul Shift. I hope and pray that this has been something that has enlightened you, has given you some information to be able to take with you, and just make note. Just hold on to it. You may not need it today, but at some point, you know what? It may come up, and you may be like, you know what? I heard that before. Let me dig a little bit deeper. So that's why I'm bringing you this information, and I hope that it is a benefit to you. Because it's definitely a benefit to me and my family. So this is Greta Ross of Mind, Body, Soul Shift. Thank you for joining us. We will see you on next week. Same time, same place. Mind, Body, Soul Shift, Greta Ross. Peace out.